Okay, now you're good.
All right, good morning. It's 9:02, March 15th. And I'm going to call this monthly meeting of the Planning Commission to order. First one to establish that we have a quorum present.
Yes, we do. We do have 5 members of Planning Commission currently, and that is a majority of our group.
Perfect. Okay. First item's the consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. It looks like we've got the meeting minutes from the 2 February meetings on the consent agenda, and that's it. So anyone wish to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. And opposed?
5-0 approved.
All right, thank you. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. A preliminary plat of part of Block 3, Arden Acres. Section 3, request for approval of preliminary plat for Arden Acres, Section 3, being 61.82 acres, generally located southwest of the intersection of Arden Road and Northwest Drive.
Good morning, Planning Commissioner. Sherry Bailey, Principal Planner, and Arden Acres is the preliminary plat you just mentioned in Section 3 is my first item. This is southwest of Arden Road and Northwest Drive intersection. It's a fairly large piece of property, 60+ acres. The zoning there is a mix of CHCG and RS1. The future land use is also a mix of commercial and neighborhood. We do have an item later on the agenda dealing with a comprehensive plan amendment and a zone change. This is in District 6, Billy DeWitt's district, and in the Bluffs neighborhood. This is the proposed preliminary plat. As I indicated, it's 61.82 acres. There are intended to be 144 single-family residential lots, which take up about 28.9 acres. 2 commercial lots, which are these 2 large lots here, which are presently CH. They are at this point thinking about having them be through a conditional use for multifamily, but want the flexibility to examine that. The rest of the plat is made up of a drainage easement, which is 9.859, which is this general area down in here, and right of way, which is basically streets. This preliminary plat, both commercial and residential, follows the comprehensive plan, general plan guidelines, and it is in conformity with the intent and purpose statements. It provides for orderly and safe and efficient development of a growing area in San Angelo. It assists in guiding future growth and development, and it provides for efficient use and extension of municipal utilities. Staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat for Arden Acres. We have some notes that we would like to bring forward. The first one is any additional future platting may require fire apparatus, access roads, and additional fire hydrants, and the applicant is aware of this. The applicant is also aware that sidewalk may be required in any future platting, particularly along Arden Road and Northwest Drive, consistent with the City of San Angelo's Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. Prior to plat signatures, a preliminary drainage study shall be submitted for approval. And future connection to Street C of Street C to Arden Road will require TxDOT concurrence, and future final plating will have infrastructure installation requirements. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and answer any questions you might have.
Does anyone have questions for Sherry? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name and your address or your single member district, what you want to talk about.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering, 706 South 8th Street. All of San Angelo, I guess. Really just thanks Sherry and staff for working on this. I'm kind of looking forward to bringing forward some final plats on this in the near future, and really happy to answer any questions.
Good morning, Russell. Thank you. Anyone have questions for Russell? All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment. Any of my colleagues have comments or wish to make a motion on this case?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. Opposed?
5-0 approved.
All right. Next case, first replat of lots 37, 38, and 40 through 48, Marina Heights addition. Request for approval of first replat, of lots 37, 38, and 40 through 48 of the Marina Heights addition and a variance from chapter 10.3A2 of the Land Development Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a paving width of 30 feet without curb and gutter for East 39th Street, an urban local street, and a variance from chapter 9.5 to exempt the requirement for a sidewalk on a street less than 36 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Sherry Bailey again. This is the first replat of, as you indicated, of lots 37, 38, and 40 through 48 of Marina Heights addition. This is the third time that it has been before you, so it should look familiar by now. What is before you was the original plat that came in with the lots with one lot missing in between. Then we came back where this lot was put back in, and because of some interactions with the neighbors, this is now back to that original layout of the lots with one lot missing. The zoning in this area is single family RS1. It is 3.23 acres. The future land use is neighborhood. It's in single member district 2, Thompson's, and full variances are being requested. There's the plat that's being presented today. We sent out 29 notices. We did not receive any replies either for or against. To remind you, this is the property. It's on the south side of 39th Street, and there's single family housing is the proposal. It is in conformity with a comprehensive plan for neighborhood designations, and also in conformity with the intent and purpose statements for assisted future growth, identification for the area boundaries, and to ensure easements and rights and ways are provided for the area. The rationale for the Chapter 10 variance, 39th Street at this portion is 26 feet wide. It functions as a local street. It does not have curb and gutter. The houses that are on the north side of the street, when they were built, they did not have to pave or construct curb and gutter. And the applicant is asking for the same variance again. Last time when it was before the Planning Commission did agree to grant all of the variances requested. And so staff is in agreement that this would be consistent with what you had done before. Staff is recommending approval of the first replat of lots 37, 38, and 40 through 48, Molina Heights Edition, and approval of the variance from Chapter 10-3A2 on 39th Street for no street improvements and a partial variance to allow for street paving width, subject to 5 conditions of approval. First one, to provide a tax certificate. The second is to install water and wastewater service lines to each lot or request a deferral. The third is prepare and submit plans for required improvements to East 39th Street, or again, request and receive a variance, and they have, and staff is in agreement on that. Fourth is to prepare a drainage study or request and receive a deferral to a later development stage from the city engineer. And the engineering staff is in concurrence with this and is recommending the deferral. The fifth is to prepare and submit plans for approval illustrating the proposed installation of sewer main and required sewer connection, or submit a financial guarantee. And with that, staff will stop having the PowerPoint slides up and answer any questions you might have.
Sherry, I'm looking at your notes here, and there's a discussion about a drainage study and a deferral.
Yes.
Is the drainage for these lots included within the platted area, or how's that being handled?
I believe Mitchell is here and he can address that.
Okay, perfect.
Sure, good morning. And Erica might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember in the original agreements of this drainage study and being deferred, it's actually going to go off site to another site where they originally had, I guess, some kind of multi-family housing. They were going to construct a detention pond there. And from what I understand, that's still going to happen, and that's still the original kind of arrangement for this property. So no, it's not staying in the platted area, but it is going to a detention pond that's already been looked at and approved by the city.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, anyone else have questions for the staff? I'm going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this case, please state your name, your address, your single member district. Just tell us all about yourself before you start.
Chairman Stribling, I do see Miss Erica Carter is on, but it looks like her phone is on mute. Erica,
Okay.
if you could hear us, you might unmute your phone and see if you can talk with us. She might be experiencing some difficulties. Looks like her login is trying to connect to audio at this moment.
Okay, we can hang out for a little bit.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry about that. I want to thank the staff for helping us out and get this done quickly. Like they had said previously, we are just moving forward with the original plan, basically just new owners, and so they want to move forward with what was originally planned. So I appreciate everybody's help on this.
Okay. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone have questions for Erica? Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to make a motion or have questions or comments?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. Opposed?
Miss Brittany, there you go. Are you voting aye? Okay, so that would be 6-0.
6-0.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Her video was off for just a moment. Now it's on.
perfect. So back to subdivision plats. First replat in block 43, Lasker's addition. A request for approval of a first replat in block 43, Lasker's addition, being 1.138 acres, located southeast of Martin Luther King Drive and West 23rd Street, and 2 variances from Chapter 103A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a paving width of 36 feet with curb and gutter in lieu of the required 50 feet with curb and gutter for Martin Luther King Drive, an urban collector street, and to maintain a paving width of 36 feet with curb and gutter in lieu of the required 40 feet or 36 feet with a 4-foot sidewalk and curb and gutter for Farr Street, an urban local street.
Thank you, Chair Stribling and Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. Our next case today is a first replat in Block 43, Lasker's addition. So this is a replat, as you can see on the aerial, of 6 lots into 4 lots. So the 4 lots over here is the home of Franco's Restaurant. Franco's, as you all know, came in last month with an abandonment to acquire additional street frontage here. And one of the conditions of that approval was that they do a replat. Rather than leaving an irregular jog in the street, which we didn't want to do, and they've agreed to assist these 2 homeowners here be part of this. So the replat essentially will make all of the Franco's lots into one. Now it'll just be easier for the ease of future development, and then extend that forward a little bit into the right of way, and then add these 2 lots as well. There's a couple advantages for these 2 owners as well, which I'll go over in a few minutes. This is on 1.15 acres in Martin Luther King Drive and West 23rd Street. The zoning is CGCH on the 3 lots over here, and RS1 on the remaining 3 lots. Also going through that process, Franco's has went through Planning Commission as well last month on the rezoning. So eventually these 4 lots will be CG zoning. These 2 will stay RS1. So this is the plat, and that includes the 22 feet of West 23rd Street, allow them to expand their restaurant. As mentioning, there's some advantages to these 2 owners as well. It will fix some of their non-conforming front setbacks here and give them a little bit more front yard space. In addition to the plat, we're also requesting, or the applicant's requesting, 2 variances. One is to allow Martin Luther King Boulevard to stay at 36 feet wide with curb and gutter, and Farr Street as well at 36 feet with curb and gutter. So these are some of the site photos that we had taken. Now Martin Luther King, as you can see, was part of a recent city capital improvement project. And so you've got the roll curbs here and the 36 feet wide. So this was already done and checked by the city engineering and operations. A contractor had done that work. So that's already been done. There is a sidewalk on the west side of the street, and then the roll curbs over here, as you can see. This is looking from 23rd Street. 23rd Street is wide enough and doesn't need any variances, but that portion from here to here will be used as a future drive-through and allow a little bit more room for Franco's on the north side of the street. But again, no variances required on 23rd. And then when you go east, it also, the plat connects with Farr Street. That is 36 feet. This is a already developed neighborhood with curb and gutter. But that photo, so you can see that. 23 notices were mailed out, and staff did receive 2 in favor, none against. The 1 in favor was from one of the property owners, homeowners that's part of this replat, and then from another neighbor up here, number 5. So that's what we received in response. I'll just go over this real quick. Staff believes that the plat conforms with a comprehensive plan. The commercial policies support the replat, and access from Martin Luther King Drive for the restaurant shouldn't change. And it's mentioned the 2 homes will now meet the front yard setbacks. It also conforms with the intent of purpose statements. As part of the abandonment, they'll have to provide an easement for maintenance along the north side. So that'll be included as the conditions of approval. Commercial lot will still face West 23rd, and the lot and block pattern will still be the same as it is now. So the Martin Luther King variance, as mentioned, the CIP project already improved the street at 36 feet. Staff believes that's still sufficient. That's engineering and planning together on this. The CIP project is the unique situation. So that's test number 2. 3, it would be a hardship if they didn't get the variance. They'd have to remove all the work that the city just did. So that doesn't make sense. And then no variation to any current ordinances. On the Far Street variance, I measured from 14th Street all the way up to the north end of that street. So that's probably half a mile or more. It's 36 feet with curb and gutter and all developed with homes along there. So it wouldn't make sense to have to rip up the curb for an additional 2 feet. So we believe both variances should be granted. Staff recommends approval of a first replat in block 43, Lasker's addition, approval of a variance to maintain 36 feet of paving with curb and gutter for Martin Luther King Drive and Urban Collector Street, approval of a variance to maintain 36 feet of paving with curb and gutter for Far Street, subject to 7 conditions of approval. I'll go over these quick. Most of these are standard. There's some unique ones. Provide the tax certificate, obtain approval from the city council for right-of-way abandonment. That is going to city council for first reading tomorrow. So if all goes well, that should be approved on second reading in early April. Make corrections on the plat document, just some wording changes. It said Lasker and it's Lasker's. Also the adding up the right acreage once they include the abandonment area. Improve Martin Luther King Drive, financial guarantee or variance. Again, staff's recommending the variance. Improve Far Street, financial guarantee or variance. Staff's recommending variance. Number 7 is the unique one. So when they applied for the right-of-way abandonment, right at the corner of Martin Luther King and 23rd, when they add the 22 feet to their properties, a piece of the curb actually will go into private property, which we don't want. So what number 7 means is they'll have to push that curb forward to the satisfaction of engineering, and that'll just be a condition of approval, and they'll have to have that curb realigned before the plat is recorded. This concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm available for questions.
All right, anyone have questions for the staff, for Jeff? All right, we're going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. Really would ask staff to support the variance request and approve the plat as presented, and be happy to answer any questions. And I believe Mr. Pfluger is on the line as well, and he can help answer any questions as well.
All right. Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment and open it up for the commissioners to share comments or make a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. Opposed?
Approved 6-0.
Thank you all.
All right. Next case, first replat of lots 29, 30, 31, block 3, Bentwood Country Club Estate, section 16E. Request for approval of a replat of lots 29, 30, and 31, block 3, Bentwood Country Club Estates, section 16E, and variance from section 9(3)(a)(1) of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to provide 2 lots that do not have direct abutting access to a dedicated and improved public street.
Good morning, Shelley Pascal, planner. This is a first replat. The property is actually zoned RM1. The future land use is neighborhood. It's within District 1 Tommy Hebert, and it's in the Country Club neighborhood. As you can see on this previous aerial, it was 3 lots, 3 larger lots. They're proposing to reduce it to 1 smaller lot and 1 larger lot. And And since it is within a neighborhood or a residential district, we did as a replat, we did send out notifications, and I received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition, and I did send out 8 notifications. It does conform with the comprehensive plan being neighborhood, and this plat will provide orderly, safe, and efficient development for the city. As far as the variance, we believe that these subject lots do have access to Overhill Drive, which is technically a private street, but it does have an emergency access easement, and it does function for this area adequately. And there's no dedication of street right of way, which is unique to this area. And it's generally not applicable to other properties. And we do support the variance for abutting access to this portion of Overhill as a street. It is already approved as a private street, and it does function as a street. City staff, we do believe that the existing private street, like I stated, will serve the area adequately. The applicant does state that the other conditions are met and the provision of the applicable ordinances will not be varied. And staff does agree, like I stated, that Overhill does serve as a street, even though it is technically a private street. City staff, we are recommending approval of first replat of lot 29, 30, and 31 of block 3, section 16E of Bentwood Country Club Estates, and approval of the variance from 9.3A1 to allow the lots not to have direct access to a public road, subject to 3 conditions of approval. Those conditions being copy of the tax cert, install necessary water and wastewater service lines, and to place a note on the plat that fire hydrants need to have access or may be provided depending on really the layout of the buildings. And that's the end of my presentations. And is there any questions?
Is the existing zoning staying the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Hello, Russell with SKG. Just happy to answer any questions and would ask that you approve the replat and variance as requested.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to leave it to my commissioners to make a motion or share comments.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. Opposed?
Approved 6-0.
All right. Related comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning. City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. 4155 Arden Road. You want me to read both of these in?
Yes, please, if you would.
CP 21-02, 4155 Arden Road, a request for approval of an amendment to the City of San Angelo comprehensive plan, changing certain lands from the commercial future land use to the neighborhood future land use, being 11.761 acres, generally located in the 4100 block of Arden Road and off of Northwest Drive. Z 21-03, 4155 Arden Road, a request for approval of a rezone from heavy commercial, CH, to the general commercial zoning district on 21.257 acres, then from the heavy commercial to the single family residence zoning district on 5.793 acres, generally located southwest of Arden Road and Northwest Drive intersection.
Thank you. Sherry Bailey again. This is the piece of property that we just did the preliminary plat on. Again, it's in District 6, Billy DeWitt's district in the Bluffs neighborhood. What is before you is to change the comprehensive plan on these two pieces of property that are presently listed as commercial, future land use commercial, and change that to neighborhood. They all want to put in single family lots on that property also, as you remember from the preliminary plat. And then the commercial or the rezoning is actually to change the commercial that presently exists in that area to RS1, and to change the heavy commercial to general commercial. This is where they're considering either doing a conditional use for multifamily or to do some commercial development. We sent out 14 notices. We did not receive any in favor or opposition. In looking at the request before you, both the comprehensive plan and the zoning request, we believe the general commercial is the more small commercial adjacent to the residential development, which is up along Arden. So it goes either direction, either for multifamily or commercial to serve that general area. But general commercial is the more smaller commercial, not large, not a heavy commercial that is presently zoned. And this is changing it, will be changing it to be compatible with the overall intent and use. It is consistent with the zoning ordinances in that all around the area, you have residential that's buffered by a general commercial, which is less intense certainly than the heavy commercial or industrial area. We believe that the changes that are proposed are in keeping with the zoning ordinance. It's also compatible with the surrounding area. The property to the east and west is general commercial, while the property to the south is single family residence. And with the zone change will be a larger area of single family that will utilize that general commercial area if that's the way it's developed. In change conditions, again, the general commercial is the smaller commercial that provides more local services for that large residential area. We believe that there is no effect on the natural area in the fact that this was always intended to be a development, either single family or commercial, and this is in keeping with that. And it is an identified community need. Both single family and multifamily are still listed in the city as definite needs in the area, while commercial development, meeting those local needs, is always needed. And the proposed zoning will, in fact, be a logical and orderly development pattern, while still providing for choice and flexibility in the area. And the access to the site and the major traffic movement patterns are beneficial to the neighborhood as well as the city, because there are some of the residential streets that are coming up through the commercial without impacting either that commercial or the residential development. So staff is recommending approval of the request to approve the comprehensive plan amendment to change the commercial to neighborhood for 11.761 acres, and to approval of the rezoning from heavy commercial to general commercial for the 21.254 acres, and the general small to general commercial areas to single family, which is consistent with the intended development as identified in the preliminary plat. And with that, staff will stop sharing their screen and answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have questions for Ms. Bailey? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name.
Russell with SKG Engineering. Really would just like to kind of clarify and give us some flexibility on the acreage and how the zoning is playing out. If you you really closely compare the overlay of the preliminary plat and the zoning, there is a portion of that CH zoning that would need to be zoned RS1. And so if they get very precise in some of the zoning acreage changing from what zoning. So if the planning commission could just kind of afford us the flexibility with staff to kind of hone that in and make sure we get those acreages exact and fitting to the preliminary plat. Other than that, thank you for staff working with us on this, and ask that you approve the zone change as presented with the modifications on the acreages.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment and open it up for the commissioners. Russell, I think what you're saying is that you would like for us to approve this based on the preliminary plat that we just approved in this meeting, as it relates to the changes in the comprehensive plan and the specific square footages of the zoning for general commercial and single family. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Such that the zoning syncs up with how the lots lay out on that preliminary plat that was approved. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else have comments or wish to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. And I'm assuming it's to follow the preliminary plat dimensions that were recently approved by us this morning. Okay, so all in favor, say aye with show of hands. And opposed?
That appears to be 6-0 in approval.
And that's both for the change in the comprehensive plan and the zoning. Is that correct, Joe?
It is, and also allowing that flexibility that Russell was requesting.
Okay. All right, next case. Reese Ownings. Amendment to PD 07-03 2909 South A&M Avenue, a request for approval. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. Rezoning, City Council has final authority for approvals of rezonings. Okay, so amendment to PD 07-03 2909 South A&M Avenue, request for approval of a planned development amendment, PD 07-03 to allow an additional use of a water processing and delivery business and related accessory uses for a property located at 2909 South A&M Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Shelley Pascal. As y'all might recall, this case was tabled back in the February 22nd meeting. They're wanting to amend the plan development for this property to allow water processing and delivery business. It is within District 5, Lane Carters, and the neighborhood is ASU College Hills. This is just showing the future land use and the existing zoning on the property. And the subject property is this large metal building on the left, and to the right is the old Travis School building. At the last meeting, or let me start with, typically we send out 35 notifications, which is the typical what you see. And we received, of those notifications, we received 2 in favor, and then we received 10 in opposition of the letters sent directly back to the planning commission or planning division. However, at the last meeting, we did receive a petition in opposition, and of that petition, there were 17 property owners that signed that petition. At the last planning commission, the applicant presented or told us regarding a petition in favor, and on that petition, there was 7 property owners that signed that petition. There was other signatures on it as well, but we can only go with the actual property owners for the cases. However, there was 4 property owners that signed both the in favor and the opposition petitions. Just a little additional information on this case. In August 21st, 2007, City Council approved PD 0703 to go from an RS1 to a PD for assisted group living. In April 2013, there was an amendment to this PD to allow the operation of a gymnastics academy. This current proposal is to specifically add just the allowance of a water processing and delivery business. This business will process water through an RO system and then bottle it on site. After bottled, it would be delivered to the customer. This proposed plan development is not in keeping with the future land use of neighborhood for this property. And also this property is within a well-established neighborhood that has single-family homes and a church. The underlying zoning for this property is RS1. The PD is not consistent with the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance intent is to protect the existing uses from undue impact. And in this case, city staff, we feel the surrounding neighborhood would not be protected by adding a commercial use to the vacant building. The surrounding uses are single-family homes and a church. And we believe the proposed use could bring in traffic and noise that is not intended for a neighborhood. There is changes of this actual property. At one time, it was an elementary school, and it was for many years, but it has also been vacant also for many years. The specific amendment is to occupy the gymnastics. It was occupied by the Gymnastics Academy until mid-2019, and then has remained vacant since. Approving this plan development would allow commercial use within a residential area and could generate traffic and noise. We do not anticipate any negative effects on the natural environment due to the structure already exists. We do acknowledge that there is a community need for commercial uses. However, staff, we don't feel that this is the appropriate location for such a use, given its close proximity to single-family homes in a well-established neighborhood. As an area for a neighborhood, this application is not consistent with the development patterns and could have a negative effect on the residents within the surrounding area. Therefore, city staff, we do recommend denial of the plan development PD 0703 to allow an additional use of a water processing delivery business and related accessory uses. Is there any questions or anything you would like me to go back to for this case?
Sherry, with the one slide that you had mentioned that there was, 7 people that had basically changed their vote. So there's 14 or 13 against and 11 in favor then, is that correct?
It kind of it's a little tough to decipher, but there was actually 4 property owners that both signed the in favor and the in opposition petitions. However, we don't know which they signed first because the petitions don't have actual physical dates on them. So there was a total of 17 that signed the in favor petition. There was a total of 7 that signed the in opposition petition. But there, amongst that total, there was 4 that signed both.
Sorry, I'm totally confused. So.
Can you pull that slide back up, Sherry? Maybe.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
that might help us.
One moment. Oops. Okay, the purple stars, property owner 18, 34, 30, and 28, they signed both petitions. So their numbers are also within this 7 and the 17.
18, 34, 30, and
28.
28. Okay.
So, sorry, I'm trying to understand this. So the 4 that are marked in purple, we did not subtract them from the 17 or the 7, correct?
Correct, correct. They're part of the 17 that signed in opposition, and they're part of the 7 that signed in favor. And I do want to note that there was other signatures on both petitions, either being a non-property owner or outside the 200-foot notification area.
I have a couple of questions.
Do you want me to stop sharing so we can see you, or do you want to see this up?
If we could keep this up, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, sorry.
No, that's fine. A couple questions. If I remember correctly, last month, I think there was a gentleman that spoke and he said he's going to have maybe a delivery truck or 2. Is that correct?
I do believe so. And the applicant is, once we have public comment, I do believe the applicant is on to answer that specifically, but that is my understanding.
And that's great, right? And probably with a little growth, maybe 5 delivery trucks, who knows?
From my recollection too, Joe, it wasn't like that they were like semi trucks, they were like diesel.
Yeah, no, I got you. Okay. And so I guess where I'm going with the question is, if I lived by that school when it was operational, I don't know how many kiddos were at that school, let's just call it 500. I would imagine I would probably have at least 3, 4, 5 buses on top of, I don't know, these days, no one takes, these days everyone gets picked up from school. No one knows how to ride the bus anymore, it seems, but I would imagine a couple of hundred SUVs pulling up every day to pick those kiddos up. So I'm just wondering, was everybody so against the school when it was up and running that I just have a hard time understanding that the footprint that this business is going to have would be far less than the footprint that school had for decades.
Well, and then after the school with the gymnastics, I mean, there was a fair amount of traffic on that street with pickup drop off. Obviously these were more, evening hours other than maybe in the summer. So I see the traffic impact being less on the proposed business than it was on any business in the past.
And you also already have an active church. I don't know how many people are at that church, but I would imagine there's some traffic. It's probably not an online church. So I'm having a hard time with the traffic argument.
And then the owner, and I know the owner is going to get on and speak about the property in a moment, but I believe he had almost like a town hall deal at the facility the other week. Did anyone, I was out of town and did not make it. Did anyone actually go to it?
No.
No, I wasn't able
for it, but I did not have a chance to attend either. I was out of town. Why don't let's open this up for public comment. I'm sure Jack is here to speak. I'd love to hear about the meeting that you alluded to, and anything else that Jack would like to add for consideration. Jack, are you on with us?
Muting. Okay, how about now? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Okay. Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all's time. Good morning. I sent a letter, approximately 40 letters out to the neighbors, and just invited them. I had the owners of Texas Custom H2O and myself. We put on a little video just showing them what kind of noise we were dealing with. Basically, the equipment all running at the same time is roughly the same decibels as a diesel pickup at idle. You'll never hear it from the road. I mean, it won't be an issue to the neighbors at all. Just answered any questions, any and all questions that were thrown out at us. But most of the people, and when I say most, I mean, I've got a sheet here of probably 50 something signatures. I went more than 200 feet. I went probably about 5 houses deep in every block that joins me. And once I explained it to them what was going on, I mean, I sat on some people's front porches for 45 minutes, just visiting with them, letting them know what was going on. And everybody was in favor of, except 2 people. I had 2. One of them said that they wanted a daycare there, and that's all they would vote for. The other one was just in opposition. And then I had 2 that said they didn't have a problem with it at all, but they were not going to sign my petition in favor of. So other than that, I mean, it was 100% unanimous. They were in favor of, and I had a lot of people that said, I will sign up for the service right now if y'all will deliver us water.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Jack? Jack, could you clarify the traffic that would be generated from, I guess, the vehicles that would be owned by the business, not necessarily customer traffic?
Yes, sir. Starting out would be 1 flatbed, either 3/4 or 1-ton pickup for deliveries. And then within a year's time, hopefully there would be a need for another one. So we're talking 2, even a year or 2 down the road, maybe, add another one every time it was needed. But we're talking, in that parking lot every day, including employees, starting out 3 people, 3 vehicles, and maybe a year down the road, 5 or 6 vehicles. In comparison to, like I was saying, the elementary school, you can imagine how much traffic that was. And even when Texas Tumbleweed was there, I believe there was between 400 and 500 students a week that ran through there. So we would have, there's 3 parking lots there, and there's a drop-off zone. And all 3 of those and the drop-off zone would be solid traffic. Plus there would be people parked up and down the streets, along the sidewalks. So, I mean, it's just not even going to be a comparison as far as traffic.
Okay. Thanks, Jack.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
I don't recall. What are the hours of operation of this business typically?
Starting out 9 to 5. If there is a need to bump that a little bit, maybe 8 to 5.
Okay.
And
Jack,
then,
do you own any part of the company that's going into the facility?
No, sir.
Is the owner of the company here?
I sent him the link. I believe I don't see him on here, but if anybody has any questions for him, he doesn't mind coming down, getting on a Zoom, getting on a phone call, whatever y'all need. He doesn't mind at all.
and Jack, you said that he's got the same business model over in Midland, Odessa.
Odessa, yes, correct.
Okay. Is it in, like, do you know kind of what location? Is it in more of a commercial area there, or is it similar?
I'm not sure. I've never been to that location. He did tell me that it's in about a 1,500 or 1,800 square foot building now. And he said that's this.
Cutting out on us, Jack. Oh, there we go. You're fading in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Plus, the gymnasium has the sound dampening walls in it, so it's going to absorb the majority of any noise created by any of the equipment that's bottling. I mean, it will be no issue noise-wise. You won't even be able to hear it from the street, much less across the street to the neighbors.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, I don't know if you're able to share this information or not, but as far as like lease terms that you've discussed with him, was it like a 2-year or 5-year?
Yes, ma'am, 2-year, and then we would look at it at that point whether to renew or not.
Okay. Anyone else have questions for Jack? All right, I'm going to continue to open it up for public comment and allow anyone else that wishes to speak on this case an opportunity. If you would, please state your name and your address or single member district.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Larry Loika. I live right across the street from the gym. We live in a residential area and do not want a commercial business operating right in our front door. I believe that's why we have zoning ordinances. Just really don't want any part of it. And I don't feel, since we're in a RS1 area, that we should be forced to put up with it. It's that simple. That's why we have zoning laws.
Okay. Mr. Loika, thank you. Anyone have questions for Larry? Thank you, Mr. Loika. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this case?
Commissioner Stribling, it does look like you're down to 5 commissioners at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Shelley, did I don't remember seeing it in the presentation, but if the commission was leaning towards approval, did you have any recommended conditions?
I do. If Planning Commission is leaning towards approval of this case, forwarding it on to City Council, some of the thoughts that could be considered to make this PD subject to conditions to try to help the concern of the residents is, possibly limiting the truck usage, how large the trucks are. Here's just a few, the property shall not be used as any other retail sales. This limiting the on-site signage. Also making it specific that the office space shall be allowed for the processing business, but no other types of office use shall be allowed. Limiting even the we did 7 to 7, but as he specified, is 9 to 5. We could kind of, look at the limitations of the hours of operations. We can also look at the exterior lighting to be shielded, make sure it's shielded. And also make it specific that no outdoor storage of any kind shall be permitted. If the commission's leaning towards recommending approval of this case. Thank you, Brandon. Did y'all want to see these?
Do you mind rolling back to the first couple of points? I know you had signage.
Right here.
There we go.
We could look at
no on-site retail.
Correct. And specifically, where customers can't come to his business, bring their water jugs, fill them up on site, and then go home. Where it would be he delivers to them on a regular basis or a setup basis.
Okay. Do you mind going to the second page again, please?
No, absolutely. And the office space is just more so it's specifically stated that, yes, they can have an office for the processing business, but, they couldn't bring a law office or, a different kind of office space in there.
Right.
Just at hours of operations, which those could be even narrowed down even more with him stating that was 9 to 5. We just kind of looked at maybe 7 to 7. So these are all tweakable if that's the way the Planning Commission kind of wants to lean.
Okay. Jack, do you have any objections to these requests for signage with the limitations being single family use for signage, office space for the business only, no outdoor storage, and no on-site retail sales?
None at all. And I live in the neighborhood as well. So I think those are all
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there
Thank
anyone
you.
else wishing to speak on this case? If not, I'm going to close public comment and have a discussion amongst the commissioners here or take a motion. All right, I'm going to close public comment. I want to start by saying that I think these cases are very difficult, very challenging. When you have an old elementary school in the middle of a neighborhood that is no longer being used as an elementary school, it presents a lot of challenges. The uses for those facilities are limited. And I certainly understand the concerns of residents and the impact that a potential commercial business could have on them. I think Mr. Gabriel has done a really good job of outlining the limited impact of this specific business that he's proposing for this location. But I also understand Mr. Loika's concern about having commercial zoning or commercial use within a residential neighborhood. So I want to start by saying this is tough. So anyone else wish to share comments or make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. And you're right, it is a tough case, but I really hadn't heard a compelling argument over that's going to sway me other than we don't like it. I'm never going to be convinced that the footprint of this is going to be anywhere close to what that school was. Even with 2 3/4 ton pickup trucks that I believe 3 of us on this commission drive. So you're not talking about any major vehicles. So
with your motion, Joe, would you have limits on signage or office space, any of the other recommendations that the staff had made?
Look, signage, anybody who knows me, I'm going to be all about limiting the signage. But I think the only one, Brandon, that I didn't like was we're trying to place a limitation on hours of operations before they even have a chance to get in and get open. It's easy for somebody to say, well, 9 to 5, but if we stick with that 7 to 7,
yeah,
it gives them a little bit of area to tweak it if they need to tweak it. But I don't want to start getting into the business of limiting people's business strictly by hours. They don't have any idea what their hours are going to be.
So no outdoor storage and no
Correct.
On-site retail sales.
Correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion
I'll second.
and we have a second. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed?
Approved 5-0.
5-0. Okay. Staff, do you guys understand the
Yes,
direction
sir.
you went on that vote?
Yes, sir. That was subject to the conditions that I had provided
Yes.
and
Okay.
keeping it at 7 to 7 versus the 9 to 5.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Next item, conditional uses. Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 2102, 1009 Rio Grande Street. Request for approval of a renewal of a conditional use for short-term rental of a 2-family residential zoning district. In a 2-family residential zoning district located at 1009 Rio Grande Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shelley Pascal again. Y'all might be familiar with this property. Y'all previously approved a short-term rental March 16th, 2020. This is the renewal for the first year STR. It is located at 1009 Rio Grande. The future land use is neighborhood. It is zoned RS2, 2-family residential. It's within District 5, Lane Carter, and it is in the neighborhood or central neighborhood. Here's the neighborhood in the RS2. This is the subject property. And this is looking both east and west of the subject property. There does not appear to be any adverse impacts on the surrounding properties. The location is compatible with the surrounding area. It will be located within the existing single detached dwelling and complies with all the setbacks, and it has the 2 required off-street parking spaces on the rest of the home. It is compatible with the surrounding area, and it will actually blend in with the residential neighborhood. We do not anticipate any adverse effects on the environment. As staff, we do believe that there is a need for short-term rentals in San Angelo, just really in general. And also, it does not have any adverse effects on the existing development patterns. I did send out 19 notifications. I did not receive any favor nor opposition. City staff, we are recommending approval of a renewal of a conditional use to allow a short-term rental in a 2-family residential district, subject to 7 conditions of approval. They must maintain that 2 off-street parking spaces. They should register with the state of Texas and COSA, or City of San Angelo, for a purpose of hotel tax. And there shall not be any exterior evidence of the short-term rental. They shall obtain a certificate of occupancy. They shall obtain and comply with the city marshal's regulations. They shall maintain the short-term rental operations in manner consistent with the zoning ordinance. And there shall not be any commercial outdoor storage allowed on premise. And I did check with both the police department and code enforcement. And since the initial approval of this short-term rental, there has been 0 calls to that property in the last year. Any questions?
Yes, if you could go back to that list of 7 conditions.
Yes, sir.
So if you could go back to the first page. Are all of these conditions being met currently by the applicant?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Perfect. Anyone else have questions for the staff? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name and your single member district or address.
Mr. McClure, you if you're speaking.
I was talking to my wife actually, but
good morning.
No, we've been operating it this way since it was approved before. We have no issues. We like to continue to operate it this way. We live across the street from the property. Primarily, we realized we could probably flip it or rent it out and make more money, but we like being in control of who's across the street from us, even if it's different people every weekend. Our whole neighborhood has become rental properties, and we don't particularly like that. So being in control of who's there is nice for us. But yeah, we like for you to allow us to continue to use it that way, and we'll comply with the requirements.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for Mr. McClure? All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comments, and if anyone wishes to share comments or make a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. And opposed?
Approved 5-0.
Okay. CU 21-03, 507 South Jefferson. Request for approval of a conditional use for a short-term rental within an existing single-family home in the single-family residence zoning district for a property located at 507 South Jefferson.
Sherry Bailey again. This is the first time request for a short-term rental at this site. It is an existing single-family home in a neighborhood that is mainly made up with single-family homes in it. There are 2 or 3 homes in the general area that have accessory structures that are rental structures. It meets the existing parking needs. It's in District 5, which is Lane Carter's district in the Santa Rita neighborhood. The future land use is neighborhood for this area. The current zoning is single family RS1. This is a picture of the home. And if you look at the parking driveway here, it goes all the way to the rear of the property where there is a garage. So there is ample parking on the site. We sent out 20 notices. I received 5 in favor, and I got another one this morning. So there are now actually 4 opposed. And the general comments on those that are opposed have to deal with the fact they don't want their neighborhood becoming a rental area. They like it being a single family neighborhood. That was basically what they had commented on. You'll see the one lot where the property owner sent in for herself a positive in favor. There was also a opposed sign. That was because of the property owner before this also received a notice, and he was wanted to let the planning commission know that he was against that use for his property. In taking a look at the rationale for this particular piece of property, staff does not believe that there are any negative impacts that are anticipated for the area. Most of the short-term rentals tend to be weekend rentals, although there are a couple that come in for a week or 2. But in most cases, particularly in the Santa Rita neighborhood, in the short-term rentals that we've seen develop there, they're here for either being something going on at the university or something going on at the base that they're involved in. And we haven't had any complaints that I could see in the histories of the ones within probably a half mile or more. This request is consistent with the short-term rental ordinance, and they will comply with all of the requirements in the city zoning ordinance. We believe that this area, even though it is pretty much a single family home area, there are a lot of accessory built structures in the area that are rental structures, although those are long-term rental structures. We do not anticipate any effects on the natural environment. There's still an ongoing need within the city of San Angelo for this kind of use. A lot of people coming in, particularly in the COVID period of time, who are coming in who feel more comfortable coming into a home environment, and they've indicated that they like to have the short-term rental available. There are no changes anticipated to the existing development pattern. As a typical single-family neighborhood, there are a lot of homes with children, with cars. There is a very active and busy neighborhood. Staff is recommending approval of the conditional use for a short-term rental at 507 South Jefferson Street with 6 conditions of approval. And first one being the owner shall maintain the required 2 off-street parking spaces and maintain them in a manner consistent with the zoning ordinance. The second, the applicant shall register with the state of Texas and the city of San Angelo for the purpose of the hotel occupancy tax, and forward copies to the planning division for that, so that we know that they have done that. 3, that no exterior evidence of the short-term rentals shall be allowed. 4, that the owner shall obtain a certificate of occupancy for the short-term rental so that they are inspected both from the building division and also 5, so that the fire marshal can conduct their inspection. And 6, that the property owner shall maintain the short-term rental operation in a manner consistent with section 406. With that, I'll stop sharing and answer any questions you might have.
Anyone have questions for the city staff? Specifically, Ms. Bailey. All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If you wish to speak on this case, please state your name, your single member district or address.
Hi there. I'm Elisa Denny. I know many of you on this call, and I think that I've proven to be very trustworthy steward for my projects here in the city of San Angelo. I am requesting that my home at 507 South Jefferson Street be allowed for a short-term rental. I base this decision on the fact that I've done a significant amount of research, as well as interviewed multiple people within the community that maintain current short-term rentals. I would like the city to know that there's been a 90% increase in the need for short-term rentals since this time last year. I would also like the city to know that the area in its proximity to Shannon Hospital is a big calling card in terms of the need for short-term housing. Although we do have a tremendous amount of hotels in this town, and I understand that, not every family situation is such that people, say, traveling with children with different various needs or with pets and what have you, may not find it accommodating to be in a one-room hotel, as you can imagine. Further, I do have 4 off-street parking spaces in addition to my garage, which is detached. And I would relay that it will not have a negative impact in any way, shape, or form upon my neighborhood, because as it is currently zoned RS1, I've been living in the home for 1.5 years. And I do have 4 teenage children, all of which who drive. So you can imagine that we pretty much have a elementary school parking lot at my house. So I feel that the impact on my neighborhood will be actually a positive one. VRBO and Airbnb limit any short-term rentals to the maximum of 2 adults of any rental. So that means that there's not going to be an issue in terms of the number of occupants. Also, I would relay that it confuses me how my former property owner could actually vote against me, considering I purchased the house 1.5 years ago. And I wanted to let city know that the house had at that time been vacant for 2 years, which I think everyone on this call would agree. A vacant house is never ideal in any situation. At that time, it was not code compliant. It was extremely out of date. I've invested personally over $50,000 into its repair and rehab. So my purchase price 1.5 years ago was $149,000. I have 3 supporting appraisals by realtors at this time that show that I've increased the value of the property by $100,000, making its present value $249,000 as it relates. And not to get off on a rabbit trail, but I know for a fact the people that voted against my project were able to use the pool when the house was vacant. And I've also allowed that since the time that I've lived there as just a courtesy. But with me turning it over to a short-term rental, obviously, you know, I wouldn't be able to keep on with that. So I may have ruffled some feathers as it relates to that. That's the only reason I could imagine that anyone would be opposed. Further, just to let you know that the Airbnb and VRBO do require that all applicants be screened and approved and have a profile and have to give the reason that they'll be coming to town and that type of thing. So we are talking about, you know, I don't want to say an upper crust, but I mean, we're not talking about a nightly rental that is something that's going to deter from property values. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions that anyone may have.
All right, thank you. Anyone have questions for Ms. Denny? Okay, thank you, Ms. Denny. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. I'd like to verify with the staff that there's no one else waiting to speak on this case.
I'm not aware of there's anyone else out there. Ray, are you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Okay. So a discussion amongst the commissioners or a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed.
Approved 5-0.
Okay. Right-of-way abandonments. City Council has final authority for approval of right-of-way abandonments. Alley right-of-way abandonment, 100 block of South Oak Street and South Magdalen Street. Request for approval of the abandonment of 20 feet by 500 feet. Alley right-of-way located north of East Tuig Avenue, east of South Oak Street, south of East Beauregard Avenue, and west of South Magdalen Street.
Thank you, Chair Stribling, Planning Commissioners. This is Jeff Fisher again with our next case. This is an alley right-of-way abandonment. It's for Shannon Medical. It's the 100 block between South Oaks and South Magdalen Streets in San Angelo. This is a 10,000 square foot alley right-of-way that's existing. There's a sewer main that runs through it. And so it's 20 feet wide by 500, I believe. And so Shannon, to allow them to have future development potential, use this as an access here, has submitted this request for an alley abandonment. This would just, again, provide some additional land. This is in District 3, Harry Thomas in the Fort Concha neighborhood. So the future land use, this whole area is part of downtown core. It's CBD and PD 1504. So with the exception of the diocese over here and the Methodist Church over here, all the adjacent pieces are part of the planned development for Shannon Medical. And that, as you know, you all had recommended approval. That will be going to City Council tomorrow as well for a final vote. And it's a much larger area than this, but this is one of the blocks in that PD. 10 notices were mailed. We received one back in favor from the Cactus Hotel over here and 0 in opposition. So this is looking east along the alley, and this is looking west along the alley. So the big issue here is staff's in support, but one of the conditions is that Frontier has some manholes here, some underground copper lines, and then Atmos, Altice, pretty much all of the utility companies, AEP, have these overhead lines here as well. So at this point, there is a further discussion between Shannon Medical and the utility companies, and they think they can work this out between now and City Council. So we'd like to move this forward with a condition that any of these lines here have to be rerouted as necessary, and any easements are provided for those utilities. We know that it's very likely that the sewer main will have to be rerouted, at least a portion of it, as well as some of these overhead lines. So we're going to continue to provide an update and work with the applicant and with Shannon Medical before we hit City Council, but just wanted everybody to be aware of that and what that issue was. This is looking south of the alley where the medical facility parking lot is. You all had seen that PD, so there will be a future. It's showing a potential for a future above ground parking here and possibly some other development as well. Excuse me, let me skip that slide. So this is the exhibit that they had provided. So there's the 20-foot alley. So a future easement will be needed to be provided, and that would include utilities, maintenance, pedestrian access, driveway access as well. We also have a note here if the diocese and the Methodist Church have no objections, also that they make sure that they can get access if they need to as well. So if this becomes a future driveway, just up to this point at least, they have rear parking here and here. They'd like to be able to get access in there. So again, we're working through those issues. Planning staff had circulated all relevant municipal departments, public and private utility companies. And as mentioned, all of those companies, pretty much 5 of them have utilities in there, but are all in support, provided that those utilities can be rerouted and any reimbursements are provided. So they're not opposed to this, provided they can work all this out. One of the conditions for most alley and street abandonments is a required replat. So that alley combined with the adjacent blocks would have to be part of a replat application. So they're aware of that. There's no effect on the traffic patterns, again, provided those 2 adjacent owners don't have any concerns, and they can have an ingress egress easement if necessary. We've talked about utilities, community impact. There shouldn't be any, and then the public benefit, it'll provide more land for Shannon. So if this all works out, they'll be able to use that portion of the alley. Hopefully the other 2 businesses won't have any concerns, and if they do, they can have an easement in there. Staff recommends approval of the alley right-of-way abandonment of 10,000 square feet, that's 0.229 acres in Block 6 of the San Angelo addition, subject to 4 conditions of approval. So number 1 is the subdivision replat. And in the replat area, they have to provide the utility and maintenance easement or reroute the utilities as mentioned. Prior to the final recordation, provide a 20-foot sewer easement on the plat as well, as mentioned, because of the sewer line. So that'll all get worked out as part of the platting process. Pay the schedule of fees for the abandoned area, that's standard. Prove the associated plat, request recordation of a quitclaim deed, that's standard. And 4, reroute all utilities and provide reimbursement as required, or approved alternative to the satisfaction of the relevant utility provider. So again, this number 4 here will be a catch-all, so that if they can't work this out, they won't get approved as we go forward. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. We're working with Shannon on this project, and also we've been working with the utility companies on reroutes. So that's continuing to have those conversations. We'll get all of that resolved in due time. It's a pretty fast-paced project. Shannon's hoping to get started very quickly on this parking garage, oncology building, and the pharmacy. So this is all kind of heading in that direction. We'll be coming in with the plat as well. So just happy to answer any questions and would ask for your approval of it.
Thank you, Mr. Gully. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone wish to share thoughts or make a motion?
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye with show of hands. And opposed?
Approved 5-0.
All right, text amendment. City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Public hearing of an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Planning and Development of the City Code of Ordinances, creating a new Article 12.10 that establishes a process and standards for encroachments into the public right-of-way, including revisions to the existing city code.
Thank you again, Chair Stribling and Planning Commissioners, Jeff Fisher. So with COVID, a lot of our long-range proposals and ordinance changes have been kind of stalled. And now that hopefully things are improving, we're bringing one of these forward. I had met with our group and the development task force about a year ago, just before COVID. They were in support of this. Right now, we don't have a spelled out process for right-of-way encroachment. So canopies, awnings, landscaping, things that go into the public right-of-way over the property line. Most of this is in the CBD downtown. We have kind of an unwritten process where it will go to city council. But we wanted to codify this in the ordinance and give some flexibility for developers and businesses, in particular downtown. So if they have we looked at, an administrative option for them so they could streamline this, maybe look at a smaller fee and a faster process. Right now, it's about 4 to 6 weeks. It goes to city council, it goes to consent agenda, and it gets approved, and then there's a legal agreement. Some of these things, if they just have like an awning and they don't have any supports or maybe some trees or a small sign, this would be a way to get them through a little bit faster and streamline this. So that's what you're looking at now. There was a couple cleanup items I'll just touch on very quickly at the end, which so we could be consistent with some of the view obstruction sections in the city code and the sign ordinance, just to reflect what we've done here. But again, the majority of this is going to be talking about right-of-way encroachments and a new process. So I'll just go over this now. Some of the objectives we looked at were trying to encourage more investment downtown, and therefore, in the hopes that this will be more flexible, we would get more of that investment quicker and easier. Streamlined process while still ensuring public safety. Some of our sister cities we looked at had some general development standards, downtown for public safety and ADA. So we included that in here as well, and to protect and enhance our corridors, and particularly our downtown and overlay districts, as a lot of these encroachments are downtown in these overlays. So our current process, I've already discussed. You're looking at about 4 to 6 weeks. There's a $450 application fee. So we're not changing anything in terms of things that already have to go to city council, but having some opportunities there for an administrative option. We had several meetings with permits, engineering, fire, and code compliance to make sure that they were comfortable with this and everyone had taken a look. So all of the ordinance as it's written today includes those changes that the departments had provided to us. And as mentioned, we did go to the task force. So let's look at this. I'll just go over this quick. The administrative approval option was the biggest change that we wanted to codify. So this should be the planning director and city engineer. They may approve administrative requests now in the CBD. So again, right now, everything's got to go to council. This would just be a quicker way. So awnings and canopies unencumbered. So if you don't have support posts or anything like that, just putting one of those cloth canopies, everything would have to go through city council and take about 4 to 6 weeks. This can now be approved if the planning director and city engineer are okay. Any trees and landscaping downtown, movable signs. These are like those menu board signs. So if you had like an outdoor patio, somebody wanted to just put like a little sign with some menu items, they could do that. Steps or ramps to comply with ADA. We had a couple in the past, so this would allow those if you're just putting in a few stairs. And outdoor temporary public art with approval of the Public Art Commission. So we wanted to bring this to your attention as well when we open for discussion. All public art, and this includes the sheep spectaculars, the sheep structures, would get approved by Art Commission, maybe taking away that word temporary to just say outdoor public art. Most of those are done through agreements that do put a time date, but to avoid any confusion, we might want to just eliminate that word. Sidewalk furniture and surfacing. So if you're just putting tables and chairs, now I put this in here, not associated with a patio or dining area. So if it's a restaurant that has a whole patio, those are going to be permanent or longer permanent structures. We'd still want to take those to council because there's going to probably be a canopy with posts and a number of other features as well, and railings. So if it's just tables and chairs, let's try to do this quicker. And then trees and landscaping outside of the CBD. Somebody's off of a local road, maybe a commercial business. They don't have enough room on their property and they want to put some trees in the right of way. They'd be able to do that as well administratively. So the planning, similar to our river corridor process, design districts, if the planning director and city engineer don't want to approve this, so maybe this ends up being something much bigger, they can still defer to city council. So they're not required to approve administratively, but it gives them the option to do that. The applicant or representative may appeal a decision of the planning director or city engineer within 30 days. Again, this mirrors that new design district process we have. And then the city council shall review the applications for encroachments not otherwise authorized administratively. And then finally is the standards. We didn't want to be too cumbersome here, but we also didn't want to be too simplistic. So we provide, these standards are mostly for public safety, and then the design part of it can be a negotiative process between city staff and the applicant when they come in. So this is really just to protect people in a wheelchair or seniors or anybody walking along, making sure they don't bump their head or anything. And we did look at the ADA standards as we were going through this. So number one, any encroachment has to be incidental and accessory to a primary use on an adjacent property. So if the restaurant is coming in and they're, they can't apply for an encroachment 500 feet away, it's got to be in front of the facility, which makes sense. Cannot block a fire lane or a loading or unloading zone. And the minimum 5 foot sidewalk clearance, that's consistent with ADA and some of the cities that we researched. We believe 5 feet's good. So if they have an encroachment, that's fine. Just make sure you've got 5 feet between the end of the encroachment and the curb line so that somebody can get by. Maintain a minimum of 18 inches from back of the curb or 3 feet from the edge of pavement in the absence of a curb. So in that case, it's not very likely, but you could have a canopy that goes all the way, very, very far out to the, or some sort of structure out to the curb, but there'll still be the 5 foot clearance in between. We also wanted to, consistent with zoning and the sign ordinance, just make sure that between 2 and 9 feet, you can't have another structure from in the site triangle. And also we included a 10 by 10, a smaller site triangle. Often a lot of, even the ones downtown, they're the corner properties are close to an alley in the street, or there's a driveway on either side. Some of the properties, they've got shrubbery or other things right against the curb line. That can be very dangerous, especially if it's on a big street or downtown. So again, just a smaller site triangle for in those situations. 8-inch maximum support posts, that's consistent with the sign ordinance as well. So they just can't have in the site triangle a huge wide column because that defeats the purpose. And then a 7 foot vertical clearance for signs, lights, and fixtures. And by the way, all of that in the sign ordinance right now says 9 feet. Outside of the site triangle will allow down to 7, and that's consistent with ADA. ADA requires a clearance of about, it comes out to like 1.7 feet and 6.8 feet. So just rounding it up to 7. So somebody wants to put a projecting sign, it's a little bit lower. They're still within their rights to do that. There was a few exceptions to this. So if you've just got an encroachment, again, this is right out of the ADA code. So if you're between, if you're only projecting 6 inches, but you're above 7 feet or lower than that and you're 4 inches, that's okay. Freestanding mailboxes, standalone trees, and small projecting signs, 16 square feet or less, you don't need an encroachment approval. That's no change from how it's already spelled out in the sign ordinance. So, and lastly, if there's a wireless communication facility or utility pole, something that's under a separate ordinance already that's governed, we have a wireless communications facilities ordinance that would still go through city engineering, would not be part of this process because they have their own permitting process for that. But basically anything else that we talked about. That's it. So staff recommends approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Planning and Development of the City Code of Ordinances. So we fit this under planning and development section, but not in the zoning ordinance because it's not really zoning, but it's still a planning function. And this would create a new process and standards for encroachments in the public right-of-way, including those revisions to the existing city code. And that's basically the view obstruction section, which was in the second ordinance I gave you. So right now it said anything taller than 2 feet in the right-of-way isn't allowed. We thought that was a little bit harsh. So consistent with this ordinance, it's only if you're taller than 2 feet in the site triangle. But if you're, somewhere not near a driveway, not near a site triangle, not near something where the public can access, and you're just along a boulevard, you should be able to plant some trees taller than 2 feet. So that's all that was. And then again, the sign ordinance fix where we've said the sign can be low as 7 feet now instead of 9 feet. And that's consistent with the sign ordinance, unless you're in a site triangle. So I think I've covered everything. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'm available for questions or comments.
Okay. Do anyone have questions for Jeff or the staff? What action are you requesting the planning commission take on this text amendment?
We would like your blessing to recommend approval so that we can move forward to city council. I think the only point of clarification was if you want us to remove the word temporary from the public art, just because again, even though it probably is temporary, it may not always be temporary. So, but I think as it's written, we would move it forward, and then city council would essentially, if they approve that, bring it into the city code.
Okay. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak, please state your name and your address or single member district. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Have a discussion amongst the commissioners here or a motion.
Motion to approve is presented with the removal of temporary in regards to art structures.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented with the removal of temporary as it relates to art structures. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed?
Approved 5-0.
All right.
Thank you all. Appreciate the review.
Thanks for your help. Thanks for your work.
Sure, you're welcome.
Director's report.
Yeah, just had a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to introduce Cooper Carroll. He's our intern for the semester. He's here on the line, and there he is. And so we're glad to have him helping us out this semester. The only other thing is, it looks like we're getting closer to in-person meetings. Still virtual for now, but we will keep you in the loop as we hear more. And if that changes, we will definitely let you know.
All right. Adjournment. Anyone wish to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye by show of hands. And opposed?
Approved 5-0.
Thank you all. That's 10:45.
10:45. We're